I wish I could say this is a ghost story, or even give it a title of any kind, but I'm sorry to say that I can't. I'm hoping for someone out there to shed some light on the thing I saw in 1995 in the highlands of Scotland while on holiday. Around that time, when our two kids were young, we generally booked every year at various holiday parks, with plenty activities to keep them occupied, and we had one booked for later that year. But after I was told by an acquaintance of a very reasonable static caravan rental on a croft in the Highlands, we decided to have 2 holidays that year. I had always wanted to see that part of Scotland, and our thoughts were if the kids found it boring, we were having another a couple of months later, which we knew they loved.
The 6-hour estimated drive turned out to be 8 hours because of various road issues, but the longer we drove, the more beautiful the scenery was. When we reached our destination, the crofter showed us around, pointed us in the direction of the small loch that was on his land, and with a brief look in the caravan, handed us our key and then left us to it. His farmhouse, or croft house I suppose, was within sight, and he told us if we needed him just to knock on the door. The views were breathtaking and much more remote than I was expecting. There were only 2 caravans, and the other was situated on the other side of his house, so we were pretty secluded. The beauty of the place was very moving, and after unloading the car, I walked down to take a look at the loch, which was the most serene place I've ever been to, with no other people in sight and deer roaming on the hill of the opposite bank. That first night there were no events out of the normal, but we hadn't realized just how dark it would be outside. The crofter and his wife must have been early to bed, early to rise kind of people, and with no lights on in their house we couldn't even see it. The quiet was profound too, if one of the animals wasn't making a noise. There were just no sounds at all. There were only 2 bedrooms, and we let the kids use them, and me and my wife pulled out the bed in the living room that was made up from the seats. Around 3 o'clock in the morning on our second night, I woke up to noises of movement in the grass outside of the window that was parallel to me and almost the full width of the caravan. As I lay listening, I thought to myself, do the deer come this close to people? And excited by the thought of catching sight of one so close, I slowly opened the curtains slightly, just enough to peek out and hopefully not startle them, and what I saw, I swear, stopped my heart beating, followed by it racing. As stood 4 feet away from the window was a tall, slim figure, pale-colored like an off-white or very light grey. I saw no facial features, and if it wasn't so pale, I wouldn't have seen it at all in the darkness. It had an unusual shape to it. I felt it was too slim to be a person, and its presumed legs ended in kind of a point at ground level. Its head was also smaller than a human's, and I estimated it at around 6 feet tall. It had a very strange and eerie feeling to it, and I was confused and scared at the same time. That fear intensified with the way it left, because as I watched it, the strange figure seemed to almost float backwards away from the caravan until it was hidden by the dark, but I saw no leg or arm movements, and it didn't seem to turn around. All of this, from first looking out to it disappearing, was probably only 3 or 4 seconds, but felt much longer at the time. I was so alarmed by what I saw, I got up and checked on the kids, but they were fast asleep, as was my wife. And I checked all of the windows on the 3 sides of the caravan to see if anything else was outside, but all I saw was blackness. My wife stirred when I got back into bed, but she most likely thought I'd just been to the toilet, and I decided to not tell her what I had seen, at least until morning. I lay there listening until it started to get light before I felt comfortable going to sleep. The rest of our time there was really enjoyable. Even the kids loved it. Nothing else weird happened. I kept what I'd seen to myself until we went home, just so my wife wouldn't worry. And when I did tell her, she said she would have wanted to pack up and leave if I had told her at the time.